President Biden is crisscrossing the country this week to sell the American Rescue Plan to the people. Both the president and vice president, along with their spouses, are embarking on what they are calling the Help Is Here tour. Together, the four of them will cover 7 states, finishing up in Atlanta on Friday. The president kicked off the tour today at the White House, vowing to prove to Americans government can deliver.
We have to prove to the American people that their government can deliver for them and do it without waste or fraud. That we can vaccinate the nation, that we can get our kids safely back in school, that we can get our economy back on track by helping hundreds of thousands of small businesses open and stay open, and that we can give people of this nation a fighting chance again with relief checks, lower child care costs, lower health care costs, and so much more. That's our job. That's our responsibility.
Former National Economic Council Director Gene Sperling is the man President Biden has put in charge of overseeing the rollout of all $1.9 trillion of relief money. Some economists fear the stimulus package could lead to dangerous inflation levels. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says she is not as concerned.
The most significant risk we face is a workforce that's scarred by a long period of unemployment. People being out of work, not able to find jobs, can have a permanent effect on their well-being. I think that's the most significant risk. Is there a risk of inflation? I think there's a small risk, and I think it's manageable.
Bharat Ramamurti is Deputy Director of the National Economic Council overseeing consumer protection and financial reform, and he joins me now from Washington. Welcome, Bharat. Great to have you with us. So we just heard Secretary Yellen there say the risk of inflation is manageable. Tell us why the Biden administration is not as concerned about this element, and what is the administration's plan to address a potential increase in the cost of goods or living that may result from the stimulus?
Sure. So as the president and Secretary Yellen have made clear, the risk of doing too little in this situation outweighs the risk of doing too much. In other words, if we do too little to help American families, that means the 1 in 7 families that are experiencing hunger right now are going to continue to go hungry. It means that the nearly 7 million people who are behind on their rent may be facing the threat of eviction. And so those are very real risks to American families right now. And the design of the American Rescue Plan was to ensure that we got those families the support that they needed. As Secretary Yellen has said, in her view, the risk of inflation coming out of this is relatively low. That's in part because there's a lot of slack in the economy. Remember, our unemployment rate is elevated. You have to account for the fact that millions of people have left the workforce entirely, and that's not accounted for in the unemployment rate. More than 2 million women have dropped out of the out of the labor force in the last year. And so there's a lot of capacity in our economy, a lot of room to run. And I think that what we'll see, because the rescue plan is more families with money in their pocket, but not a great risk of inflation.
And Secretary Yellen also noted the pandemic's biggest risk is a workforce scarred by long period of unemployment. How do you see this relief bill helping unemployment and small businesses in particular?
Yeah, so Moody's, which is an independent Wall Street analysis firm, found that the effect of the American Rescue Plan would be to add about 4 million additional jobs just by the end of the year. And with the normal run rate of the economy, that's looking, that would be a total of about 7 million jobs by the end of the year, which will get us a long way back towards recovering the 9.5 million jobs we are short of where we were pre-pandemic. And so, our hope is that we will get people back to work as quickly as possible. Another big part of that is vaccinations, of course. That, in many ways, is the key to reopening key parts of the economy. The president has been overseeing a massive acceleration in vaccine deployment, and there's additional money in the American Rescue Plan to speed that up even further. And finally, on small businesses, the president's plan includes $60 billion, roughly speaking, in additional aid to small businesses. That's in the form of grants, in the form of loans, in the form of working capital, so that small businesses cannot just survive the next few months, but also grow and expand coming out of the other side.
And what sort of oversight will there be in terms of the potential fraud that some of this could cause? There have been stories coming out that some of the businesses for the first couple rounds of stimulus that got money were not so small and didn't really need a lot of the money. So this time around, is there more of an emphasis on directing those payments to the individuals who really, really need it?
Yes, absolutely. Preventing fraud, waste, and abuse is a critical priority of this administration and the president. We've made some significant changes compared to the prior administration on that front. For example, the Paycheck Protection Program, which we are implementing right now, which is sending out roughly $300 billion to small businesses. We overhauled how the fraud systems worked compared to the last administration to put in place much more significant upfront checks to make sure that companies were eligible before they got a penny of taxpayer money. We will be focused on fraud prevention and oversight going forward. As you mentioned, Gene Sperling is coming in to help with implementation. I know that will be a focus of his. And unlike the prior administration, our intention is to welcome that oversight, both independent oversight and our own, because we think it's important that every taxpayer dollar be spent well.
And as we mentioned up front, the first and second families are darting the country this week to sell the American Rescue Plan. But we know from polling that this plan is already immensely popular among the general public. So what does this administration think still needs to be sold?
Well, I think the goal here is to make sure that people understand all of the relief that's available to them. And while the checks and the shots, I would say, are the parts of it that get the most attention, there's a lot of other good parts of this package that can help a lot of families. So, for example, I mentioned before, there's rental assistance for families that may be struggling to pay their rent. There's assistance for homeowners who may be struggling to keep up with mortgage payments. There's significant investments on the healthcare front that are going to drive down significantly the costs for families to get affordable health insurance through the Affordable Care Act exchanges. There's a significant amount of small business relief. So part of the goal of this next week or so is to make sure that people are aware of all the relief options that are available to them and can take advantage of it. Because, look, it's one thing for Congress to pass this law. It's another thing to make sure that those dollars actually arrive in the bank accounts of the people who need them. And that's our ultimate goal here.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Bharat Ramamurti, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.